Welcome, folks. I'm Jabby Kaway, joined by Chara Kirk.
What's up?
I don't know how many people are actually interested in watching these, but we're going to watch it. E.T. has the highlights of the closing statements from Johnny Depp's team and from Amber Heard's team. In addition to that, I noticed that Asmongold Clips posted a short clip titled Amber Heard Lawyer Goes All Out. And I clicked on it just to see kind of what it was about. And I was like, oh, that actually looks like something that I would be interested in looking at with you guys. And so I found the contextual clip so that we can watch more of it than was actually available on Asmongold Clips. So we'll be watching both the ET highlights and then, what of that, because I'm sure it won't be included in the highlights because it's got profanity in it. So if you guys want to just skip around, there are timestamps in the description below. You can also just scroll your playhead forward and it'll tell you, what's what. Based on the Law and Crime Network YouTube videos, I think that people are most interested in seeing Camille Vasquez's closing arguments. So we'll kick things off with that.
Ms. Heard walked into a courthouse in Los Angeles, California to get a no-notice ex-parte restraining order against Mr. Depp. And in doing so, ruined his life by falsely telling the world that she was a survivor of domestic abuse at the hands of Mr. Depp. Today, on May 27th, 2022, exactly 6 years later, we ask you to give Mr. Depp his life back by telling the world that Mr. Depp is not the abuser Ms. Heard said he is, and hold Ms. Heard accountable for her lies. Now it's time for you, the jury, to come to a decision. You have been entrusted with a serious task. What is at stake in this trial is a man's good name. Even more than that, what is at stake at this trial is a man's life. The life that he lost when he was accused of a heinous crime, and the life he could live when he is finally vindicated. Exactly 6 years ago today, on May 27th, 2016, Ms. Heard walked into court and filed a false report of domestic abuse against her husband of 15 months, Johnny Depp. The scene was a setup. She tipped off the paparazzi so they would be waiting. They knew exactly where she would pause, which side of her face to photograph. And the photos captured what she wanted them to see, the image of a battered woman. What the paparazzi did not know is that the dark mark on her face mysteriously appeared 6 days after last seeing Mr. Depp. It was a lie. She knew it, Mr. Depp knew it, and the multiple witnesses you heard from who saw her that week of May 21st, 2016 also knew it. But the world only saw what she wanted them to see. 2 years later, when promoting the biggest role of her career until this trial, Ms. Heard presented herself to the world as a public figure representing domestic abuse. The headline of the op-ed featured the term sexual violence, even though she had never before accused her ex-husband of such a heinous crime. Ms. Heard and her lawyers love to remind you of how the op-ed did not mention Mr. Depp by name. But Ms. Heard made sure that there would be no mistake about who she was referring to. She inserted 2 years ago, so the world would remember the photo of a battered woman, the mark on her face, standing outside the courthouse. And they would once again see Mr. Depp as the villain, this time in full swing of the Me Too movement. But what was happening behind closed doors was quite different from what Ms. Heard presented to the world. The exact opposite, in fact. There is an abuser in this courtroom, but it is not Mr. Depp.
You know what I find fascinating? Being reminded of how short the marriage was.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how long they were together before they got married, but like after 15 months, and then how many years of this nonsense that followed.
He's had so many long-term relationships before, like he was with Vanessa Paradis for like years. And then this one's like 15 months and probably legitimately the worst relationship he's ever had.
And there is a victim of domestic abuse in this courtroom, but it is not Ms. Heard. The evidence presented at this trial has shown that Ms. Heard is in fact the abuser, and Mr. Depp the abused. As you heard from Mr. Depp and multiple other witnesses that testified under oath at this trial, Mr. Depp experienced persistent verbal, physical, and emotional abuse by Ms. Heard during their relationship. You heard from Mr. Depp about how often Ms. Heard would berate him, insult him, and physically attack him, including one of the most serious occasions when Ms. Heard threw a vodka bottle at Mr. Depp, severely injuring his finger, and then put a cigarette out on his face.
Oh, I didn't hear that one.
Yeah, I didn't hear that either.
You heard from Mr. Depp that this whole incident in Australia started because Ms. Heard was enraged that Mr. Depp wanted a post-nuptial agreement, and she wasn't in his will, just a month after getting married. You also heard from Tara Roberts, a manager at Mr. Depp's island, who witnessed Ms. Heard telling Mr. Depp that he was washed up and would die fat and lonely.
Wow.
You also heard from Ms. Roberts that she witnessed Ms. Heard clawing and grabbing at Mr. Depp, grabbing his hair, trying to pull him back to her, and Mr. Depp had a visible injury to his nose on that occasion. Most importantly, you heard from Ms. Heard yourselves on multiple audio recordings admitting to being physically violent with Mr. Depp. What you didn't hear on a single recording you heard in this case, and there were many played by both parties, is Mr. Depp ever admitting to hitting, punching, or kicking Ms. Heard. You didn't hear it. It doesn't exist. It didn't happen. And despite the fact that Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard are heard discussing many of the alleged incidents you've heard about at this trial, like Australia and the Bahamas, you never heard Ms. Heard accuse Mr. Depp of sexual assault. Unlike Mr. Depp, who you heard admit to and own up to his past mistakes and his struggles, particularly with drugs and alcohol, Ms. Heard will not admit that she has ever done anything wrong. But she cannot deny what you heard on those recordings. As much as Ms. Heard and her lawyers have tried to make this case about Mr. Depp's language, it is Ms. Heard that repeatedly admits to violence. When you catch Ms. Heard in a lie, she tries to cover it up with more lies.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the giant lie at the heart of this case. Ms. Heard's claim that Mr. Depp is an abusive monster and that she is a public figure representing domestic abuse. She spun a story of shocking, overwhelming, brutal abuse. She came into this courtroom prepared to give the performance of her life, and she gave it. Ms. Heard's acting coach, Christina Sexton, testified that Ms. Heard has difficulty crying when she is acting. You saw it. Ms. Heard sobbing without tears, while spinning elaborate, exaggerated, fantastical accounts of abuse and everything going on in her mind almost a decade prior while enduring that abuse. It was a performance. What we have is a mountain of unproven allegations that are wild, over the top, and implausible. And you can't pick and choose which of these wild allegations to believe and which ones to disregard. You either believe all of it or none of it. Either Mr. Depp sexually assaulted Ms. Heard with a bottle in Australia, or Ms. Heard got up on that stand in front of all of you and made up that horrific tale of abuse. Either she's a victim of truly horrific abuse, or she is a woman who is willing to say absolutely anything. But this case doesn't come down to whether you believe Ms. Heard or you believe Mr. Depp. This case comes down to whether you believe Ms. Heard or you believe Mr. Depp, Christy Dombrowski, Sean Bett, Malcolm Connolly, Travis McGivern, Starling Jenkins, Keenan Wyatt, Dr. Kipper, nurses Debbie Lloyd and Aaron Filati, Tara Roberts, Ben King, Kate James, Kate Moss, Dr. Colber, Morgan Knight, Morgan Tremaine, Officers Melissa Sines, Officers Tyler Haddon, Officer William Gatlin, and Beverly Leonard.
Damn. Like, God, that's...
I mean, she's presenting like really strong arguments. Randomly this morning, I came across a video of Johnny Depp going to a children's hospital dressed as Jack Sparrow and talking to these sick children. And I was like, a good guy does that.
Yeah.
That's supports his like good character in my book.
What Ms. Heard testified to in this courtroom is the story of far too many women. But the overwhelming evidence and weight of that evidence shows that it's not her story. It's not Ms. Heard's story. It was an act of profound cruelty. not just to Mr. Depp, but to true survivors of domestic abuse.
Yes.
For Ms. Heard to hold herself out as a public figure representing domestic abuse. It was false, it was defamatory, and it caused irreparable harm. And to talk more about that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague and my friend, Mr. Chu.
As Ms. Vasquez said, you have now come to know the real Amber Heard. Scary. We also told you at the start of this trial that you were going to come to know the real Johnny Depp, not the many characters you've seen him play so wonderfully in the movies, but the man himself. We kept that promise. You've met the real Johnny Depp.
Did you catch that?
Yeah. Her smile.
What does that mean? That could be one of two things.
Yeah.
My theory is either A, she thought it was funny that he decided to emphasize in the movies so as to appeal to the jurors, like in the movies, you know, the Johnny Depp that you know, like he's the famous guy, the narrative of the powerful man, right? Mm-hmm. Or she's still obsessed with him.
Yeah, it was kind of hard to tell because initially when she turned away and she had that little smile or that little smirk, I was projecting onto her this sense of
superiority.
Yeah, like,
okay.
Ugh. But then the way when she turned around, her smile actually looked quite warm and loving. So yeah, it is a little bit confusing.
Himself.
That.
Yeah.
Unless there was an exchange of some kind that we didn't notice.
The many characters you've seen him play so wonderfully in the movies, but the man himself, we kept that promise.
Yeah, I don't know. That's weird.
You met the real Johnny Depp. Before Amber Heard, ladies and gentlemen, no woman ever before Amber Heard ever claimed that Mr. Depp raised a hand to her in his 58 years. And no other woman since Ms. Heard made that false claim back on May 27th, 2016, and repeated it in her December 2018 op-ed. Has any woman come forward since? This is Me Too without any Me Too. To the contrary, ladies and gentlemen, you heard Kate Moss 2 days ago testify. This is a woman who has never testified in any proceeding, ever. A very private person. Testified that Mr. Depp never abused her and that Ms. Heard lied to you. And she lied to you twice. Beyond the personal and emotional effects of Ms. Heard's lies, their impact on Mr. Depp and his family, the damage she inflicted on his reputation and career is undeniable. There's an old saying that a good reputation takes a lifetime to build, but only a second to destroy. Mr. Depp spent, in fact, a lifetime building his reputation as one of the greatest actors and movie stars of his generation, an iconic figure respected and liked throughout Hollywood and recognized and admired throughout the world. As you've heard in this case, Amber Heard is not a true victim. And Mr. Depp certainly is not an abuser. Again, nobody has come out of the woodwork to say, Me Too. This is the unique and singular Me Too case where there's not a single Me Too. While Mr. Depp's name will be forever tarnished by these horrendous and false allegations.
He makes a really good point. Usually when one person comes out and says, this happened to me, so-and-so.
Like Bill Cosby.
Yeah, Bill Cosby, Harvey Weinstein, whatever. Then other people feel more courageous. They feel empowered to come out and go, yeah, that happened to me too. But in this case, it's only the one person.
I do believe that's because he has no history of this.
Yeah.
The conspiratorial part of my brain goes, he's very wealthy and he could have paid those people to just keep quiet.
There is that. Or the number 3 option is he's only ever done this once.
And the truth about what really happened, which you've now heard. It is about restoring his lost reputation. It's about showing Mr. Depp's children, Lily Rose and Jack, that the truth is worth fighting for. It is. And it's about restoring Mr. Depp's name and standing in the community to the fullest extent that you can. And you can do something. And only you, ladies and gentlemen, can do that for him. You heard from Mr. Depp yesterday that he has been carrying these outlandish, outrageous stories on his back, pretty stoically, and living with them for 6 years, and waiting to be able to bring his truth out. And he has told you the truth, the unvarnished truth, even truth that pretty embarrassing. He knew that was going to happen when he brought this case. You've seen the evidence in this case over 6 long weeks, which we again thank you for. That evidence shows overwhelmingly that Ms. Heard's attempt to paint herself as a heroic survivor, an innocent survivor, and Mr. Depp as a terrifying abuser are utterly false. We ask you to please return your verdict for Mr. Depp. We ask you, we implore you to give him his name, his reputation, and his career back. Thank you.
He feels like the Tim Cook of that team. Like,
How so?
Tim Cook is the head person. He's the head person of Apple, but he's never been like the greatest spokesperson. I mean, he's improved over the years, but if you watch like his early days of being the head of Apple, it just was like he had marbles in his mouth. He was always screwing up. They always needed to bring on the other people on stage from Apple to do the talking because they were just so much better. To have that follow Camille Vasquez, I'm just like, yo, like you need to go to study where she studied on how to speak because she just murdered that shit. And he comes on, he's like, he can't even remember the dates and stuff. Like, I'm like, this is the closing arguments.
No.
Get the dates right, bro.
I thought that they both presented very strong
The information
arguments.
was strong.
Yeah.
The information was on point. It's just like the presentation does, like, it has an impact.
Yeah, but I think they were also speaking like from the heart as well. You know, they were imploring the jury, like, please help this man. You know, like, because you know he's telling the truth and you know that Amber Heard is lying. So please.
I would have thought if they were truly speaking from the heart, they would have pulled a girl next door kind of situation. Just tore that shit up and just started talking.
In Mr. Depp's world, you don't leave Mr. Depp. And if you do, he will start a campaign of global humiliation against you.
When has he done that, though?
That lasts to this very day. He will do everything he can to destroy your life, to destroy your career. That is what they're saying, ladies and gentlemen. And that's what they're trying to get you, the jury, to be an accomplice to. But it's not surprising, because Mr. Depp cannot and will not take responsibility for his own actions.
I think it's just by bringing Amber to
It's
court.
always someone else's fault. Does the First Amendment...
Wait, hold on. I just find that so weird. It seems that he's saying, oh, because Johnny Depp will never let you go if you try and leave his relationship. Hello? He has a whole bunch of high-profile exes. They all left and had prolific careers.
Give Ms. Heard the right to write the words that she wrote in this article on December 18th, 2018. That's the question. And you cannot simultaneously protect and uphold the First Amendment and find in favor of Johnny Depp on his claim. You simply cannot. You have to decide, should someone be able to write an article like that in the United States of America without being sued successfully, without having to go through the hell that Ms. Heard has gone through?
Oh my God.
Think about every piece of evidence that you've heard over the last 6 weeks about his abuse, about their relationship. None of that is in the article. None of it. We all know that it would be a very different article if she had written about what she suffered, that she's told you about over the last 6 weeks. Because he knows the words are true, Mr. Depp says that the words now have a defamatory implication. He says the statements are the same as saying, Johnny Depp abused me. But just because he wants to make the article about himself doesn't mean it is. He has to show you that any defamatory implication was designed and intended. Look at number 4. Designed and intended by Ms. Heard to convey the defamatory meaning that he suggests.
That's number 5, actually. But the statement has a defamatory implication about Mr. Depp, and the defamatory implication was designed and intended by Ms. Heard. And due to the circumstances surrounding the publication of the statement, it conveyed a defamatory implication to someone who saw it other than Mr. Depp. And if Mr. Depp further proved by clear and convincing evidence, then Ms. Heard made the statement with actual malice.
First Amendment. That's what he talked about.
Free speech.
Free speech, right? Basically, the argument here is you can have free speech even if the free speech that you're saying is false.
I don't know why he's saying that. I think that's very strange that he brought that in. I think it's misleading to introduce that into his closing remarks. I personally find that misleading. It's not supporting the First Amendment if you're lying and it's just complete defamation.
Yeah.
Just because people might read the article and remember, oh yeah, Amber Heard used to be married to Johnny Depp and she accused him of abuse, that doesn't mean that she designed and intended defamatory implications in writing about herself. And think about it. If Mr. Depp is right, then virtually any statement that anyone could ever make about their own life that implies anything, implies any involvement with any other person, could be defamatory. And that's clearly not what the First Amendment intends.
No, but the thing is as evidenced with Camille Vasquez's statement, it's like when she pinpointed it by date.
Yeah.
Like she's like, this relationship at this point in time, and it's like specifically talking about him. And I became a symbol of domestic assault or domestic abuse, sexual assault, etc. after that relationship at that point in time. It's like, well, you're clearly talking about a specific individual then. If the intent of the article was meant to destroy his reputation, that's where I go, I don't think Johnny Depp can necessarily win that argument, but he won in the court of public opinion.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. I mean, at least mostly from what I can tell, like most people seem to be on Johnny Depp's side, but that's a hard argument to make that she wrote it designed to destroy him, to take him down. It seemed like to me, after witnessing like her testimonies and stuff like that and all the audio recordings, it seems to me she didn't write it to take him down. She wrote it to prop herself up. Two different objectives.
In the process, if she had to knock him down as well to prop herself up, I guess
she did have to knock him down to prop herself up. It was a selfish attempt to prop herself up, disregarding him and his reputation. It's like, fuck you, fuck anything that could happen to you as a result of me writing this. I'm trying to prop myself up. That's assuming that she's lying, which I feel like most people are in agreement with.
Yeah.
There's so many witnesses against her.
She didn't design and intend the words to be the equivalent of writing Johnny Depp abused me. And you don't have to take her words for it. You can take the words of Terrence Doherty of the ACLU. He said that the op-ed wasn't even Ms. Heard's idea. The ACLU wrote the first draft, and great care was taken in drafting the article so as not to make it about Mr. Depp or Ms. Heard's relationship with him. That's the only evidence presented about Ms. Heard's motive, except her statements that was exactly what she wanted to do. She wanted to talk about her experiences after Johnny Depp. Ms. Heard didn't write the headline. She didn't approve the headline. She had nothing to do with it. She was not given notice of the headline. She testified, you saw her testify about the sexual assault that she experienced at the hands of Mr. Depp. You saw her testify about that they're calling her a liar. You saw her on the stand testify with her own mouth, exactly what she went through for the first time in court, because people who have suffered that, they don't want to broadcast that to the world. They want to penalize Ms. Heard for not speaking about that earlier. That's ridiculous, and it's insulting, and it's just victim blaming at its most disgusting.
This is the first time I've noticed Johnny Depp looking so intensely at somebody in the courtroom. Mm-hmm. He looks angry. He could just be looking at him.
In the article, and you can read the op-ed, is sexual assault that she said she had experienced by the time she was of college age, before Mr. Depp. So there is a reference to sexual violence in that article, but it's not by Mr. Depp. And Mr. Depp can't hold her liable for a headline she didn't write, that contained something that was not about him. And they want you to think that she republished the headline by tweeting out the link to the online version. So let's look at this. This is the tweet that she sent on December 19th. The hyperlink says, opinion Amber Heard, I spoke up against sexual violence. That's the online version of the article. As Ms. Heard said, you can't tweet a piece of paper. So when she wanted to share that she had written this article, what choice does she have? She has to attach that link. And the jury instructions that you have make clear that a hyperlink is not republication. Forwarding a link on does not mean that you broadcast the statement again, but that's what they want to make you think. The only way...
That's a gray area, because you can lose your job over a tweet. It's not like the same as an official statement. When you send out a tweet, it is coming from you. Generally speaking, it's designed to have a connection with your audience, whoever your followers are, in a very kind of immediate way. The whole purpose of her tweeting about it is to help give it more promotion and help emphasize it, help highlight it.
But then, like, the thing that just is still nagging at the back of my mind is, like, I just don't buy it that she approved the article, but then she didn't approve the headline. Like, she didn't look at the headline. If it was an article that you were so, like, invested in and so proud of for writing, wouldn't you want to know the headline as well and make sure everything was just the way you wanted it and just the way you wanted to be represented before allowing it to be published?
And the jury instructions that you have, and we don't need to read through them in detail now, but the republication instruction says that merely linking to an article does not amount to republication, but adding content to a linked article may constitute republication. You must determine whether any added content was intended to reach a new audience, and if you find any content added to the hyperlink was intended to reach a new audience, it constitutes a republication.
So
there was no
tweet
content
is a
added to the article. If Amber was abused by Mr. Depp even one time, then she wins. One time. And we're not just talking about physical abuse. We're talking about emotional abuse, psychological abuse, financial abuse, sexual abuse. That's what we're talking about. Let's look at the evidence. You heard Mr. Depp define abuse from his own mouth. He admitted all of that when you talked about his childhood. They're trying to trick you into thinking that Amber has to be perfect in order to win, even while they're ignoring Mr. Depp's many flaws. But don't fall for that trick. Amber's not perfect. None of us are. She's never pretended to be, and that's not what you're being asked to decide.
I'm sorry, I think she did pretend to be.
One time, ladies and gentlemen. One time. If he abused her one time, Amber wins. Actually, if he fails to prove that he never abused her one time, Amber wins. So let's take a look at some of the evidence. This was one of the first messages shown to Mr. Depp in his cross-examination. This is a message to Paul Bettany, his drug buddy, early on in their relationship, when he says, "Let's burn Amber. Let's drown her before we burn her. I will f*** her burnt corpse afterwards to make sure she is dead." Some of the most vile, disgusting language that you could ever imagine.
Out of context.
That is what he said to her at the beginning of the relationship.
He didn't say it to her.
So let's look.
He said it to Paul Bettany, right?
Yeah.
And it was meant as a joke, I'm pretty sure.
Wasn't it like from Monty Python or something?
I asked Mr. Depp to read that top text. You'll remember that was the only thing I asked him to read, and he immediately said I didn't write that, even though he wrote the text under it that said, "Hopefully that rotting corpse is decomposing in the trunk of a Honda Civic." That's how he bookended their relationship. Ladies and gentlemen, these words are a window into the heart and mind of America's favorite pirate. This is the real Johnny Depp.
You can't restore his reputation. You can't give him anything. They didn't tell you that, but the court told you that. And that's a very, very important thing here. He told his story. He had his opportunities. He had his full opportunities to do all of that. And he came in here and lied to you and said he's here to get his reputation back. It's just one of many lies in this case, but it's a really big one. Because here we are, 6 weeks of your time, precious time, 6 weeks of this court's time, for what? For nothing. Only to go after Amber. That's psychological abuse. He's going after Amber for nothing. Because he wants to put her through this again, the third time. So we're fighting back, and that's the counterclaim. She finally has said enough. Enough. And we're asking you to finally hold this man responsible. He has never accepted responsibility for anything in his life. Once again, the next day, Johnny apologizes to Amber. He says in 2 different text messages, that's 772 and 773, he says, "My profound apologies" in one of them, and "my apologies are eternal" in the other one. What is he apologizing for the next day on May 22nd if he didn't know that he did all of those things? She wasn't wearing any makeup. She was natural. She wasn't wearing a stitch of makeup. Every one of them says it. It's the exact same thing. Well, why would you say that? She's an actor. She's not going to go outside her house, without putting makeup on. And if she has bruises, why on earth, when she's been covering them up for 4 years, why on earth would she not put makeup on so that she would cover those up? Why on earth would she not want to cover up those bruises? It makes no sense. But you know what? You guys saw her here. You guys saw it. You saw Amber on the stand. There were days where she didn't wear eye makeup. A lot of people think that she's not wearing makeup when she doesn't have mascara and eyeliner on. She has different looks, and some of them are with eye makeup and some of them are without. And people misunderstand, especially people that aren't that good at makeup, and a lot of men, frankly, go, oh, then she probably doesn't have makeup.
Camille Vasquez, I'm looking at her face, and she's got this incredulous look on her face. I hope y'all are not buying any of this shit. I'm projecting. Okay, that's the look that I'm seeing on her face right now.
Right.
Just please.
Then she probably doesn't have makeup. And that's where that mistake happens. But you heard her testimony, and you heard her makeup artist testimony saying
she's this
she
is
doesn't
ridiculous.
go out of her room without concealer and foundation. She knows how to put these things in. And you saw Defendant's Exhibit 155, and you'll have the actual thing in there. That's the type of palette she used, and she was very adept at telling you what colors she puts on for the different days of bruises. This is a woman who for 4 years did everything she could to cover up anybody knowing anything about this abuse. Do you honestly think she's just going to walk around for the week with her bruises exposed? Of course she's not. If you do the math, Amber is entitled to at least 31.5. What does she take? $7 million. What does she do with the $7 million? She gives it to charity. Or she intends to give it to charity. Now, they make much ado about the pledge versus donation. But both the corporate designees for ACLU and for Children's Hospital said donation and pledge are interchangeable. These are pledges. The ACLU corporate designee said you typically do pledges because of the tax benefits. And that's what she said. She pledged it over a period of time because of the tax implications to it and because she was getting paid over the time. Now, she started to make these donations, and you'll see that the first one was on behalf of Mr. Depp's business manager, Mr. White, actually sent the letters with the $100,000 for each of those. That was the initial ones. He was trying to take credit for those, and in fact, both the ACLU and Children's Hospital got confused and gave the credit to Mr. Depp, not to Amber, for those. Then she made payments to both, and Elon Musk also made payments to both for $500,000 each, which she didn't count to her pledge, but they helped those organizations. At the end of the day, she's made $1 million in payments to them, but then she got sued here and hasn't been able to because she spent $6 million in attorney's fees. That is unrefuted. She still intends to pay those pledges, honor those pledges, and she said that throughout, and I elicited from both the ACLU and from Children's Hospital, they haven't expired, she can pay them whenever she wants to, and she fully intends to, but she has to get out from under this first. They started to get Amber fired from Aquaman 2. They have continued to this day. They have followed her everywhere. Everybody has stopped wanting her. L'Oreal won't use her, even though they've kept her on from that time. She lost 3 different opportunities that were being discussed with her. The most significant part of that, though, is that Aquaman was the biggest blockbuster ever for DC Films. It was the biggest. It was over $1 billion. This was her opportunity for her star. Even the experts from Mr. Depp admitted this was her blockbuster. This was her mega. But what happened instead? As she's going through, as it's coming out, and in that 16 months they were going, well, nothing happened. Yeah, lots happened. She had 3 different films she was discussing. She got the L'Oreal contract. She got The Stand. All of those things were happening because of Aquaman. And then everything shut down. She wasn't allowed to do publicity for The Stand. She wasn't allowed to, she hasn't been allowed to do anything for L'Oreal. She got shut down from her charitable organizations. She ended up not getting the Amazon movie. And then they gave her a hard time about Aquaman 2. And instead of the career trajectory of the other comparators, who all went way up, and by the way, all the experts admit that career trajectory went well for all the rest of them, and she's the only one that didn't have it. And the reason is because of the defamatory statements.
As lawyers, I can say objectively, yeah, you know, they're giving a very impassioned argument here for their client. But a lot of the stuff like that they're talking about, I'm like, yeah, but it still doesn't add up though. You know, she said, oh, so many lies have been told in this courtroom. I'm like, yeah, from your client though.
The thing that's got me a little bit hung up right now off of her closing statements is the whole thing with the donations, the whole pledge and donate thing being used interchangeably. I don't think her lawyer can just go up there and say, according to these organizations, you can use those terms interchangeably. I don't think she can just say that and it not be true. I'm not keeping track of, Amber Heard's financial bookkeepings and all that. She could have been making pledges and whatnot, and there was a whole kerfuffle and confusion between. I can see a situation where there's a little bit of confusion with the money that she's supposed to be getting from Johnny Depp, and maybe she doesn't get a pay. I don't remember if she got a payout of $7 million all at once, or like if she started to get money the way her lawyer's arguing, because the way I heard it arguing in like some of the testimonies or cross-examinations rather, it seemed like she had been awarded all of the money from the divorce and she just held on to it. The way her lawyer's arguing it is, no, she was getting money in installments and she was then paying in installments to the charities. If what Amber's lawyer is saying is true there, then, that's a fine counter argument to what Camille Vasquez was grilling her on, which is you had the money and you didn't pay shit. You still haven't paid anything, have you? In that instance, if she did pay something, I don't know why Amber didn't say, I have started to.
Exactly. No, I haven't paid the full $7 million, but I have paid 1 million of it, Camille Vasquez is a very fierce lawyer, very passionate lawyer. Maybe Amber Heard got a little flustered when Camille Vasquez was coming at her about that, and she couldn't seem to get out the words, I've been making payments. But in her effort to express that came out as, when you buy a house, when you get a house, you make payments, right? Yeah, right? Yeah.
All right, so this is a section that we're going to look at from Law and Crime Network. Again, Asmongold Clips put up something. It was only like 45 seconds long, so I actually don't know exactly where in this video. He wasn't looking at this, he was watching it live, but I don't know where in this video his thing he was looking at falls, and so we're just going to look at this chunk.
So Io gets hold of Rocky Pennington. She comes over as quickly as she can. She goes and gets in between the two of them. She puts her hands up on his chest. He pushes them down. And then she continues to stand in between them. And he's screaming loudly 10 times, Amber, get the fuck up. Amber, get the fuck up. Amber, get the fuck up. Loudly. Then his bodyguards hear this. They come in, they break it up. That's how that happens. But the next part of this, remember Josh Drew, and I think Elizabeth Mars was amazing in this one. Remember their testimony. After that, he goes and he has to, he always leaves a path of destruction as he's leaving. So he, bashes up things, and you saw Ben's pictures here on the picture frames, knocks things over as he's going, goes down the hallway, he's splashing the wine, he gets his bodyguards to let him into penthouse 5. That's where Josh and Elizabeth are trying to help with Rocky's bead thing for the next day, and he comes in storming in, and he says, get your bitch out of here, and he's got the big magnum, and he's mad, and Elizabeth is just terrified. She barely knows Johnny. She's met him 4 times, and she goes ripping out of there as fast as she can, and Josh gets out of there too. Then what does he do? He rearranges the furniture, or he might have knocked something off, one of the countertops or something. I think is the testimony of his bodyguards.
It's just like, I know that the story is very serious, but hearing her use that language and that verbiage, it's almost like hearing your grandmother speak with profanities and obscenities and whatnot. She was like carpet bombing this closing statement with F words. God dang.
She's being very animated. But a lot of people who wanted to be actors actually ended up becoming lawyers. There is a certain performative aspect to lawyering as well.
We'll see what happens. Everything's in deliberation now.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what the verdict will be in this case, as I'm sure we all are.
I was about to say, I don't think anyone but you is. I think everyone.
I think I'm the only one.
Everyone's good.
Clearly.
We're good. We're good to move on.
No one else cares.
No one gives a shit.
No one at all.
No one is just feverishly waiting for an answer.
No, everyone's over it. Yeah. It's just me on my own over here.